The rescheduled 2020 Olympic Games are just over a month away in Tokyo, and Japan is under siege with a record number of COVID cases. How is the Olympic Committee there working to ensure the safety of athletes? And will fans even be allowed in the stands? Welcome back. With just over a month to go until the rescheduled 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo on July the 23rd, the city is still under siege. Almost 2,000 new cases were reported in Japan on June the 8th, including 98 deaths, according to the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. Despite that, the first overseas team to participate in the Summer Olympics has arrived from Australia. Here's the question on everyone's mind. How can athletes compete in these games, especially in those that require close contact, while staying COVID-free? Joining me today to discuss all this from New York is Dr. Nako Kumada, faculty member of the Department of Asian Studies and Anthropology at Bard College, and from Tokyo, Japan, by Professor Lim Tai-wei, Senior Research Fellow at the National University of Singapore. Professor Lim, let me start with you. You're currently in Japan. The city is under a state of emergency because of the resurgence of COVID. How do you feel about the games just around the corner?
Well, I think there's a very complicated feelings when it comes to the games because, of course, there are very strong reasons for moving with it, especially since athletes have been training, very long, almost their whole lifetime for the games. But at the same time, it's extraordinary times because it's an ongoing pandemic. So there's a lot of sort of focus on how to keep the games safe and how to carry it out without sort of detriments to health and well-being of officials, coaches, and the athletes involved. So there's a lot of preparation now to maximize and optimize safety precaution, including a very detailed playbook on what everyone that's a stakeholder in the games can or cannot do. So you can see there's meticulous sort of preparation going on at the moment.
So Dr. Kumada, the debate, a few months ago was whether or not Tokyo, Japan should go ahead with this now 2021 Summer Olympics. Now I guess we've heard from the IOC president and vice president saying, there will absolutely be this Summer Olympics in a month from now. How do you think the Japanese Olympic Committee, the government there, can really ensure safety while presenting these games?
Yes, that's a serious concern, and I am very much concerned about this issue as well, Tokyo being my home city. But of course, we are dealing with the coronavirus, and there's no guarantee that we can 100% be sure that there will be safety. With only a few weeks till about a month or so till the Olympics, we have to keep in mind that this has been a very, very long-term project. I want to go back to how it started. In 2011, there was the Fukushima earthquake. And in 2012, when Japan still hadn't recovered from the Fukushima incident, the nuclear disaster and the earthquake, Prime Minister Abe bid for the Olympics, claiming that this will be a way for Japan to recover from the Fukushima disaster. He claimed that the nuclear disaster is under control. And that's how Japan went ahead with this Tokyo Olympics. And fast forward, we are in 2021. The coronavirus was not predictable back when Japan bid for the Olympics. Unfortunately, to give you a bigger context to interpret the risk of the coronavirus, in 2012, then Prime Minister Abe said that the Fukushima disaster was under control, but we all heard that Japan recently announced that it may leak the contaminated nuclear water into the ocean. So we haven't actually recovered from the previous disaster, and now we are facing the coronavirus. And it's an unpredictable situation, unforeseeable situation. And this is not what I wanted to see in my home city, but that's the bigger context.
Yeah, Dr. Kumada, I feel you. I feel you as a sports fan. As your fellow neighbor, I do feel you, but things will go on, I suppose. Dr. Lim, let me go back to you. There are a lot of rules facing these 11,000 athletes from around the world. For example, 2 COVID tests before departure and a 3rd one upon arrival in Japan. In addition, they will be giving daily reports on their body temperatures and saliva antigen tests. But, of course, there will also be social distancing rules, but there is no compulsory vaccination required yet. How do you look at the protocols required by the Japanese government? Are they enough?
Well, I think it is understood by all stakeholders, including the athletes and the community at large in the host city, because as everyone has emphasized, safety is the main concern. And certainly from the athletes' point of view, they have 2 choices. One is the inability to participate in the games, or the other one is to make some adjustments and adaptations to the very extraordinary circumstances in which the games are taking place. So in that sense, I think most stakeholders will very much understand that there will be many safety precautions that are taken, both to protect the health and the well-being of the athletes and also the host city's population. And I think everyone's making efforts to do that, whether it's gathering experts from all over the world to offer suggestions and consultations, and also to deliberate on the nature of the spectators. That's something also they're studying very closely, and also the ongoing efforts to ensure that everyone abides by the playbook that is being updated as we go on, so that the latest information can be contained in the playbook. And the athletes certainly, as well as their coaches, will certainly understand this, because anyone who's infected will definitely be affected with regards to the participation and performance in the games itself. So I think by and large, these rules are very much well understood and well accepted by all stakeholders in the games.
But Dr. Lin, let's look at it. During Olympic test events in late April, 1 corona case was found, and during the torch relay, 8 people were involved, have been, tested positive. Do you think there is a foolproof method to really keep everyone safe?
Well, I don't think that there can be any perfection in handling something that is rather extraordinary. You could call it a black swan event, but certainly every single precaution can be taken in order to ensure that these are minimized. And I think these rules, or the games, the rules of the games, are well understood by all stakeholders and participants. And so far, I think you can see that certainly a lot of people have been abiding by the rules with regards to what they can or cannot do. And so I think if everyone abides by it, and if there is cooperation amongst all stakeholders, I think it is possible to minimize any black swan events as it has happened.
Fingers crossed
in this sense,
that is the case. Yeah, definitely. Hopefully those measures will work. Dr. Kumana, let me turn to you for a second. The Australian softball team was one of the first squads to arrive in Japan. One of the team members said that despite the circumstances, they're really happy to be there, to be in Tokyo, Japan, to compete in these games. So let's talk about athletes, because they're really at the center of these games. Do you think, staging these Olympic Games, despite COVID, is a good thing, maybe the best of things for these athletes?
Well, I really sympathize for the athletes for having to compete in this kind of circumstance. Tokyo is a wonderful place in normal circumstances, and I would have liked the athletes to just come and enjoy the city, but unfortunately, the city is under lockdown, and they must be under a lot of pressure, and it's very awkward for them to have to compete in these circumstances. And I understand your concern as well, asking these questions as a Chinese person, because China has overcome the COVID very well. China has a zero tolerance policy, and Japan unfortunately hasn't dealt with the coronavirus as well. I think that Japan has gone, as many people have, many Japanese have criticized that Japan has gone a bit too neoliberal and follow the Western model rather than go along with the, our Asian fellow neighbors. So I've been observing how this was going to unfold. Unfortunately, from early on, the government didn't handle the coronavirus as they should have done, as many Tokyoites feel. The former prime minister was flying SDF planes, self-defense force planes, over Tokyo rather than doing other more practical things to contain the virus. And now we are here with the latest situation is that we have new variants of the coronavirus in Japan. So it's really unfortunate for foreign athletes to have to come and visit and compete under this kind of circumstances.
Yeah. We pray for the best. Professor Lim, let me turn back to you. Although Tokyo Olympic Committee said in April that the games might have no spectators, as overseas visitors have been, banned from coming to these games, Japan is still preparing for domestic fans to attend. However, the organizing committee is still lagging on making the final decision on whether or not, whether how many spectators will be allowed. Why do you think the Japanese organizing committee is taking so long to decide, and what are the concerns?
Well, I think there is an introduction for a degree of flexibility in observing the final decision. They are in no hurry to do that because, as you know, a black swan event like this, right, tends to be dynamic. So they have to take in a lot of consideration. For example, whether the domestic audiences would consist of vaccinated, the local audiences, or whether there could be accommodation of more people, depending on the numbers that are nearer to the actual happening of the games. So I think there's a lot of fluid, dynamic factors involved, and I think many people, including experts, understand that they want to introduce a degree of flexibility so that right up to the dates near the games, then they can decide on the details of the spectatorship. Of course, it would be ideal to have a vaccinated spectatorship, but again, it depends on the number one priority, which has been emphasized over and over again by the authorities, which is the overriding priority of well-being, health, and safety of all stakeholders and the participants. So I think this is a kind of a process that is well understood by all stakeholders with regards to the game.
All right, Dr. Nako Kumada and Professor Lim Tan-Wei, thank you both so very much. With that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liuxing in Beijing. Download the CGTN app to watch our show, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. On behalf of our whole team, thanks for watching.